Good evening and welcome to Tucker Carlson Tonight. I'm Mark Stein, in for Tucker this evening. There's new outrage in the case that sparked a fierce sanctuary city debate across the country. In December, the illegal immigrant accused of murdering Kate Steinle on a San Francisco pier was found not guilty of murder, and now Jose Garcia Zarate is attacking the feds for pursuing new charges against him. Soon after his acquittal, the federal government brought firearms charges against Garcia Zarate. He's now calling for those charges to be dropped, claiming that they're vindictive prosecution. David Leopold is an immigration attorney. He joins us tonight. David, vindictive prosecution, what exactly do you understand his lawyers mean by that?
Well, what I understand his lawyers to be doing is, Mark, what any lawyer would do, and that's represent their client in court. You know, if you were charged with a serious federal felony, I think you'd want your attorney to raise every possible defense. And I think that's what's happening here.
Just with vindictive prosecution, though, as I understand it, usually when these charges are brought, it's because there's a lack of probable cause. No one's arguing in this case that there isn't probable cause, are they?
Well, look, you know, when we talk about vindictive, what I think is vindictive is the way that the Trump administration, the way that others have vilified, criminalized immigrants. They've taken the tragic death of Kate Steinle, and they've turned it into a broad brush attack on immigrants all across this country, when in fact, you know, the stats show, all credible statistics show that immigrants who come to this country out of love for the country commit crimes at a much lower rate. Tucker
has a whole bunch of statistics that show something different on that. But let's
yeah, but I don't know where Tucker gets his statistics, Mark. I know where I get mine.
But the point here is that he's not being prosecuted as an example of an immigrant. He's one immigrant who's been credibly accused of committing a crime for which the federal prosecutors wish to charge him. And you say, okay, now everybody's demonizing immigrants. Well, for start, he's an illegal immigrant, which is different from an immigrant. And the fact that he's one immigrant who's accused of a crime doesn't make him any more typical of illegal immigrants than this mumbo-jumbo we always hear about how they're all high school valedictorians just getting back from their third tour of Iraq.
Mark, then why are we even talking about him? We're talking about him because he's been used by the president. We're talking about him because
he killed an American citizen. We're talking about him because he had killed an American citizen. He's accused of a specific crime.
Right. All right. So let's talk about reality and let's talk about facts. The credible studies out there, and I'll point you to the American Immigration Council, I'll point you to the Cato Institute on the right, I'll point you to the Center for American Progress. All the credible studies tell us that immigrants in this country are law-abiding, they come to this country, they work hard.
He's not.
They create jobs.
Look, I'm Canadian. It doesn't matter if 99 out of 100 Canadians don't commit crimes. If I do, that's why this point, the fact that, you know, every other illegal immigrant may be law-abiding doesn't alter the fact that he's committed a crime, does it?
Well, you say you're Canadian, and that's fantastic, and it shows that in some ways our immigration system does work. I just wish that our immigration system could work for the rest of the country, for the rest of the undocumented people who, by and large, are law-abiding, create jobs in this country, do phenomenal research in this country. You know, I represent a lot of physicians.
This guy
hang on, can I finish?
Yeah, but this guy hasn't done any of that.
Can I get my point in, Mark?
No, because these are just general talking points. These are general talking points about how
they're facts.
No, they're the fluffy bunny unicorn talking points. We're talking about a criminal here, a criminal. So the fact that the guy next door hasn't committed any crimes is irrelevant. I want to ask you about this other story, though, because this is interesting to me too, and should be to you as a lawyer. California isn't just acquitting illegal immigrants of murder; it's also giving them government jobs.
That was a jury, by the way, that acquitted that man. Go ahead.
Lisbeth Mateo, who's an illegal immigrant, has been, and an attorney, I don't know how you pull that off. She's been appointed to the California Student Opportunity and Access Program. She can't vote. She's here illegally. But apparently she has the right to help run the state government of California. I believe she's the first illegal immigrant to be appointed to a statewide office. How's that grab you, David?
I think that's fantastic. Look, she's very accomplished. I think it's fantastic. She's a member of the California Bar. She finished law school. And you know something else? Let me finish. Let me finish. She's a dreamer. And the President of the United States, President Donald Trump, has said time and time again that he loves the dreamers, that he supports the dreamers. Unfortunately, President Trump uses dreamers as hostages to try to eviscerate the immigration law and cut out immigration to at least half of what it should be. I mean, it's unfortunate.
Explain this to me. You're licensed to practice in Ohio. So you can't practice. If you wanted to practice in California or New York or whatever, you'd have to do this pro hac vice thing where you have to find some local New York lawyer or local California lawyer who speaks for you. So in Ohio...
Actually, with what I do, Mark, I practice all over the country because I'm an immigration lawyer and we deal in federal immigration law.
Yeah, I understand. I understand federal court. I'm making a point here about state law. Under the cockamamie system you got here, an Ohio lawyer has no presumption of being able to practice in California. How does a Mexican lawyer wind up practicing in California?
She's admitted to the bar. Hang on, you asked the question, I'd love to answer it. She was admitted to the bar. Ms. Mateo took the bar examination, she went to law school, she took the bar examination. She's duly admitted under the laws of the state of California, under the rules of the California Supreme Court, and I think it's fantastic. You know, she represents the best and the brightest of the dreamers, and I think we ought to be giving more opportunity to folks. I think we ought to be finding a pathway to citizenship.
So as an officer of the court, you have no problem with a lawyer being here unlawfully?
As an officer of the court, I have no problem with a lawyer practicing in California. Now, the unlawfully part can be solved. If President Trump wanted to solve that problem, he could have solved it. He created this horrible situation with DACA by canceling DACA in September. Those are the facts. Then he said he would save the dreamers. He wanted a deal. Then he held them hostage. I'm just giving the facts, Mark.
No, these are all the generalities, David. By the way, I love this.
General facts.
We need people to come here and do the jobs that Americans won't do. I actually thought one of the jobs that Americans would do was actually being lawyers. But if we're going to get, $8 an hour Mexican lawyers, that will be a boom for the country.
You say something about $8, Mark, you say something about $8 an hour Mexicans and that sort of thing. The other day I watched a segment on Tucker and you were on and you did a great job. You were talking about how horrible it was that that dog died in the airplane, and you talked about your own dog being sick, and my wife and I lost our dog this year and it was one of the saddest things we went through, and I hope your dog is doing much better. But what I really wish, Mark, is that you had the same compassion for human beings.
Yeah, no, I'm brutal. Love dogs, hate the human beings. That's what you summed me up there, David.
That's what it sounds like.
That's perfect.
That's what it sounds like, Mark.
You got me back to rights. Nancy Pelosi has a novel new attack on President Trump's proposed wall. It's too high.
Did you see it? How high it is, and the rest of the president think the wall? I mean, really? In a civilized society, we'd do something like that? As obnoxious as it is? But a wall that big, separating people? I mean, really?
But we shouldn't be surprised that Nancy Pelosi has strange notions about border security. After all, she thinks illegal immigration can be stopped with a lawnmower.
We all have a responsibility to protect our borders. What do we need to do that? Should there be fencing? Should there be technology? Should they mow the grass so that people can't hide in it?
Yeah, big problem. Mexicans hiding in the long grass. Kurt Schlichter is a columnist for townhall.com, and he joins us tonight. Kurt, is Nancy fully on top of the situation here?
Well, you know, Mark, I don't think Nancy's on top of any situation. And I got to say, after your last guess, I'm a California lawyer, and I got to just say, I'm so very, very proud. I'm proud of the California bar having people, you know, letting people in who shouldn't be here. I would have thought that would have been a basic disqualifier.
Just explain to me how that works, Kurt, because as I understand it, if you ran a feed store, would it be illegal for you to hire someone who's in the country illegally, or if you had an accountancy business. But if you have a law firm, you can make an illegal immigrant your law partner. Is that how it is now in California?
Well, apparently so. In effect, here's the problem, Mark, and it's one that worries the hell out of me. It's an attack. This whole thing about illegal aliens is an attack on the rule of law. The rule of law is so critical. Our representatives passed a law. Remember how a bill becomes a law and you had the little dancing bill on Saturday morning TV and then the president signs it and it's the law. You know, the people get a say. Remember that? And when you don't have that, when you pass a law and then ignore it, you really have no rule of law. And I'm a little sensitive about that. I deployed to Kosovo. I was a lawyer at the time. I spent 16 months away from my firm helping put together that country after the Civil War. I saw what happens when you lose the rule of law. And I don't appreciate being lectured as not being compassionate when I left my family for 16 months to go help a bunch of foreign strangers not be murdered. So just throwing that out there.
You raise an interesting point there, Kurt, because it's selective, this, isn't it? So we're told that apparently federal immigration laws are now entirely irrelevant. But if I decide that I don't like the federal tax laws, apparently that's one of the laws that still applies. So Law 27
that one's still... That one still applies, Mark. You know, Dinesh D'Souza, an opponent of President Obama, he violated a very technical election law, ended up, you know, getting arrested, getting prosecuted, getting a felony conviction, which other people don't, if we're talking about vindictive laws.
Look, you're right. That was a vindictive prosecution.
Look, you can't have two sets of laws, one for the favored folk and one for the normal folk, one for everybody else. That doesn't work. Now, you've been to countries where they had that. Did they seem like nice places, Mark? Were they places you'd want to be?
No,
They're not.
You're right there, Kurt. In fact, that's like kind of a theme this night, equality before the law. The former FBI Deputy Director Andrew McCabe's retirement pension is in the hands of the Attorney General Jeff Sessions, and the clock is counting down on the pension death watch. That's coming up next on Tucker Carlson Tonight.